Hello, viewers. Welcome to Opening Pathways with Tom LeNoble. I'm excited about the guest I have for you today. Anil Vadaparty is here with me. He's the CEO of McKinley. He's going to tell us all about what McKinley is. Welcome, Anil.
Well, thank you, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. Tell us, I want to know about McKinley, but I also want to know what sparked your interest to be involved with McKinley.
Yeah, well, thank you, Tom. I love talking about McKinley and the organization. We're a 125-year community-based organization, Southern California. We provide a variety of services, to our communities, and it's really with the goal of helping to uplift the individuals in our communities, helping individuals thrive, find their purpose. McKinley started as an orphanage back in 1900. It was a vision the founder had. But since then, it's evolved. We're now a multi-service agency, multiple locations in Southern California. We provide comprehensive mental health services and counseling. We work with foster youth. And we also offer specialized educational programs through two schools that we operate. And these are for students that need just a little extra support. And
Amazing.
we provide that team of over 400 employees that are just incredibly dedicated. They're my inspiration every day. Thousands and thousands of children, families, adults that are impacted by our programs. Yeah, and I stumbled across this work by accident. It was in 1993. I just graduated from college with my bachelor's degree, and I always wanted to go to law school, which I did, but I took a year off, and this really I just answered an ad in the newspaper. That's how long ago this was, for counselors in our residential program that McKinley had at the time, and so they hired me fortunately, and I never had any experience like this before. But what I thought was just going to be a 1 year transition before I went to law school wound up being something that I fell in love with. And yeah, so I started that way. I went part-time, went to law school after I graduated. I stayed with McKinley, did a few other things as well, but I passed the bar exam here and then eventually moved into an administrative role and then became the CEO back in 2014. So it's been
Amazing story.
11 years. Yeah, I love
Amazing.
it.
When was the moment you said to yourself, this is my path? When did you know that?
I've been asked that before, Tom, and I don't know that there was any one defining moment outside of I started to realize that I really enjoyed doing what I was doing. I loved the organization. I always wanted to do something impactful. I think it was a culmination of a lot of maybe individual moments that just really helped me realize that this is what I wanted to do. And I use my law background. It's something that does absolutely come in handy, when I'm doing the work that I'm doing now. But I feel like it's got purpose and meaning. For me, that was always important. And I'm now a father, and so, having that purpose and meaning, for my son as well, so that he can see that this is really good. You can blend a career and happiness together. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Sounds like you're changing lives. So, I find it interesting that typically there's someone or someones in our early days that we can look back on and the things that we're doing today when we find the thing that we're going to do, which it sounds like you have. Who is that for you?
I think in a similar way was probably a lot of different experiences, from family, certainly learning the value of hard work, from my father. He passed away about 3 years ago now, but he immigrated from India, came from a poor family. He worked his way as an engineer here in the U.S., provided for us and really learned the value of hard work and, showing up to work every day and, just doing what you need to do. Certainly I had wonderful, teachers and mentors along the way. Some of the folks that I had the pleasure of working with here at McKinley, and I've taken a little bit from all of them, in terms of, these are the things that really, I believe, helped me become the person I am today. Um, so yeah, I would say it's really kind of, like I said, a lot of little experiences
Yeah.
that's helped me.
Tell me, what personal values have guided you from the start? What are those personal values that just are always there?
I like to believe that you can be ambitious, you can be yeah, you can be ambitious, but you can still be a good person along the way. And I try to be kind, whenever I can, compassionate, understanding, while also being ambitious, setting high standards for myself. I think it's that those principles that I always try to keep with me. That again, I can be ambitious, I can have a competitive side to me, but I can also still be a good person. Um, yeah.
Yeah, good, good. Did you ever doubt your vision on this journey?
I absolutely, absolutely. I went to law school, and so I think there was, you know, a lot of thought as to, am I really choosing the right path? And, should I, maybe go a more traditional path that, folks who graduate law school go through. As I'd mentioned, my father was an engineer, so heavy into sciences, and that's really the direction he was hoping I would go into as well. He was hoping I would be a doctor, but I always told him I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor. So, yeah, no, I think there was definitely some doubt, but whenever I saw the impact of the work that I was doing, it always reminded me that I did choose the right path. And yeah, I'm 30 plus years into it now. I'm very happy.
Amazing career, yes. Tell me something about your leadership style, and was there any pivotal experience that kicked it off or molded it?
I think it's working with so many compassionate, ambitious leaders in the past. I think has really helped to motivate me and mold me into the person that I am today. My leadership, and it's really grounded in our values here at McKinley. We have what we call our human values. It's an acronym. Each letter stands for an attribute. It's hopeful, understanding, moral, awesome, and nurturing. And that's really, what I try to mold my leadership based on, and what I hope is motivating everything that I do. This is also to the backbone of who McKinley is as an organization, where those human values, it really describes the type of environment that we try to create for our team members, for those we serve, because we believe people can thrive when those conditions are present. Yeah.
Wonderful. Tell me what you've learned about trust.
Um, trust. Trust has to be earned. Um, trust comes from experience, from how you experience people. Um, it's something that you have to earn, and it's something that can easily be broken. And it's hard to get it back.
Very
Um,
hard.
right. Yeah.
It is. It is. I want to know, was there ever a risky decision you had to make and it paid off? And what was it that gave you the courage to act on that risky decision?
Um, I think, from a personal standpoint, or maybe reflecting on me, it probably was the moment that I decided that I really wanted to have a career in this field. Um, when I applied to be the CEO for this wonderful organization back in 2014. I think I knew I was taking a risk in many ways. I was really stepping out into a new role. I knew I would have to do things that really fell outside of my comfort zone. For many years, I was really the person behind the curtain, that was helping the leaders. And then to step out in front of the curtain and be the leader and do some of the things that and again, I knew was important for the role, but would probably make me feel a little uncomfortable, such as public speaking, like what I'm doing now. I think those are some things that, they definitely I had to really look within myself and ask, why am I doing this? Am I doing it for the right reasons? And certainly a lot of conversations with my wife as well, about what this would mean for me and things. But I think ultimately I believe we grow by doing the things that make us uncomfortable. So, in about 20 minutes before I jumped online here, I was pacing my office back and forth because that's how I get ready for things like this.
I love it.
So
I've heard,
I've learned, yeah,
I've heard many ways people get ready for things like this. It's the best, right?
exactly.
It is. It is. I love you're sharing a lot of wisdom here with people today that are looking into what their next step might be. So tell me, how does Anil decide when to pivot or push through?
Um, I like to, as much as I can, make informed decisions. Um, I tend to take in information just as that, as information. I try to not overreact to anything that I'm seeing. I try to just digest as much as I can. I like to sleep on things. Um, I do like to reach out to people, some trusted advisors that I know, just to, get some differing opinions. I certainly take that collaborative approach with my executive team as well. Um, so I try to just gather as much information as I can. But I also know that sometimes decisions come from the heart. It's not always an analytical process. We've had to make some difficult decisions here at the organization at McKinley, recently, and that's the approach that we take is that we try to gather all the information, just really try to see, you know, what are what is the best way to go forward and in a way that still honors the work that we do, but provides us with opportunities to succeed. Um, so yeah, I try to make it as much as I can, a rational decision. But again, I know sometimes things aren't rational, and sometimes you really have to go based on instinct and gut. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm curious. I know in my career, some of my biggest mistakes have turned out to lead to some of my biggest successes. Have you ever had an experience where something that either was a mistake or didn't go well that turned out to be a success later?
I think so. I can think back to some points in my career where things didn't go exactly the way I wanted it to, but it led me, towards a different path that I would have never thought of had I not experienced the disappointment. And I think that's the approach that I try to take, with everybody, that we learn from our mistakes. Let's not look at mistakes as failures, but let's learn from them because there's always something that comes out of that can be positive, if framed the right way. And nothing good happens unless you take that risk. So I believe in that you have to be okay with making mistakes, taking calculated risks, obviously, not being reckless, 'cause we can never do that. Um, but yeah, I think ultimately that's how we all learn.
Yes, it is. I think so. I think so. We may not know it at the time, but later it turns out that way where it goes, oh, that makes sense now. It might not make sense at the moment. So tell me, Anil, what impact are you most proud of? But I want to know personally, not professionally.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think as I mentioned, I became a father 3 years ago. I'm late to fatherhood. My son was born when I was 50, so um, I had a lot of time um, in my life not being a dad, and so becoming a father, I think and it probably sounds very cliche, but that's probably personally something I'm the most proud of in that I'm really able to find the time to juggle a busy career, while also being present for my son. In fact, I think the first time you and I talked, I was at home feeding my son while I was having a
You
conversation with
were.
him. These are the ways I try to find, that work-life balance. And, and I believe in that. I believe that, you can have a busy career. You can also, be a wonderful parent. You can be a wonderful husband. You can ask my wife about how I'm doing in that regard. Um, but I think the idea that I'm able to spend as much time as I can with my son and, seeing all those pivotal moments that I think sometimes people miss out on. I was there when my son took his first steps, when he said his first words, when he ate his first bite of solid food. I mean, that was all me, being in the room with him. And so, I'm hoping, more of those milestones will include me. So yeah, I think that really is probably the thing that I'm the most proud of. Kind of also too, just on a personal note, just as you mentioned, one of the things and I've shared this openly with my team, and it's also what has led me to help bring in what we call an ecological model of care. And I've, had my own health issues that I've worked through. I'm a type 2 diabetic, and when I was first diagnosed, I had these reactions to the medications that were very unpleasant, and it was really quite depressing in many ways because I was thinking that if this is really what my life is going to be like, just it just wasn't something that I was, very happy about. So that really led me into understanding kind of holistically what was going on, with my health, with my body. And that led me to make a lot of changes in my life, from, managing my stress as much as I can, managing my stress to, eating healthy, exercising, understanding like there's an ecological approach to a holistic approach to, to health. And so that also is what motivated me to really look at how do we bring in a similar ecological model, of care to our clients, because mental health, you don't just deal with mental health in a vacuum. It's the environment that helps individuals. So it's something that I'm really proud that I've managed. I've dropped weight. My A1C is in a very manageable range. I'm not increasing my medications. I'm more
Good.
active now than I probably ever have been. So yeah, I would say I'm also really proud of that too.
Yes, as you should be. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
great. We take care of ourselves, ourselves take care of us, right?
Absolutely.
How do you balance being a leader with being a learner?
I really believe the essence of leadership is the willingness to learn, and to push yourself. I consider myself to be a lifelong student. I am always reading, learning, trying to improve myself. I've had the benefit of working with an executive coach in the past, and that's really benefited me. I think the best leaders are ones that will listen and will learn and will understand that they have limitations. I tell people all the time, I don't have all the answers. That I need people to tell me, give me information. Um, so I really believe all leaders have to be willing to listen, learn and grow.
Yes, it just makes sense to me. I know I've had some interesting experience with some of my clients. One of my favorites, I've talked about it here before, was a CEO that called me and was very perplexed and said he needed to talk to me, and that he had set up all these things where, his office was open to everybody. He had all these promotions and stuff to be able to come see him. He was, laid out the red carpet, if you will, and just everything that he had done, and that nobody ever came to see him. Nobody ever was interested, and he felt like he was failing in communicating with his workforce. And so I listened and I finally shared with him, did you ever think that perhaps you need to go out of your office? That what you're seeking you may learn outside your office, that your title and someone coming in is either threatening or intimidating to someone, and perhaps you need to check out being human and being able to show that you learn from others. And it was a great experience to watch that person grow from there and have that happen. It was really, really fun to watch that. Um, I'm interested to know that have you ever had to say no to something because it just wasn't aligned with the organization, and how was that?
And it comes up quite a bit in organizations like us because like ours because inherently the individuals that work at a place like McKinley, their intentions obviously are to help as many individuals and communities as possible. But there are times that we do have to, draw some lines because it's something that perhaps is not within our wheelhouse or it's beyond the scope of our mission, or perhaps we don't have the resources, to make that happen. And those are difficult things to do because we all want to help. We see a need, we want to run to it, and help. And so, unfortunately, there are times that we do have to say that this is a noble need. It needs the attention, but we may not be able to help in this particular
Yes.
case. Um, and none of us like that.
Yes. Yes. Especially if it's needed, right? Especially if it's something that is still needed, you recognize it. Tell me now, what's the boldest vision for McKinley in the next 5 years?
I think we've laid out a strategic plan where we are hoping to grow into some new regions. We really want to try to expand our impact as much as possible. And that's, through new programs, new partnerships. So we're hopeful of that. We're also hopeful of, really what we're calling, turning up the volume in many ways, where we're hoping to speak to as many people as possible about, what McKinley does, what we have to offer, how communities can benefit from the services that we have. So, there's a lot that we're doing in that area. Over the next 5 years, we're also trying as much as we can to push out, technology to our teams because, we believe that the proper use of technology in an organization like ours can humanize an organization more. We know that a lot of organizations are seeking to implement tools like artificial intelligence. And initially, it may seem like an odd fit for a human services organization, but I believe it's quite the contrary, that used properly, it helps to create more meaningful engagements by reducing the time that our team has to spend on redundant administrative tasks,
Yes.
and allowing for more face-to-face contact. I've had the pleasure of speaking about this at a conference in Washington, D.C. last year, where that's begin the premise behind how we're using artificial intelligence. That if our therapists, for example, if there's less time that they have to spend on paperwork and writing clinical notes, but more time that they can spend face to face with those that they're working with, it's they're going to have a greater impact. You know,
Yes.
we can all think of somebody in the past that had a tremendous impact on us, and the thing they gave us was time, more than anything else. No one looks back and says that, well, they were great at paperwork, and that's what made the difference for me. It was the time that they gave, and so those are things that we're trying to do is create, more time by utilizing things like technology and really pushing that out, to our team.
Well,
Um,
technology is moving forward for sure. And I have the pleasure on this podcast of talking to a lot of tech CEOs or founders that are in AI. About 85% of them actually work in AI. And it has been fascinating learning some of the applications and how it's being used from everything in the medical field to psychotherapy to one company where they're streamlining when you call just the local agency in your town to find out a phone number and how difficult that can be to be able to get to a department that you need to talk to. And one guy that's looking at how it's more collaborative AI, where someone is sort of like you have someone next to you that just makes you more efficient and better at what you do and frees up your time. And it's been fascinating. And these technologies, technology's been changing around us for years, and many people get a little upset and concerned that it's going to destroy us. But I remember they thought that about email and about the internet. And social media, and we're all still here and we're surviving. And I think we will see it being used more and more as we go forward. So tell me, what shifts are happening in our culture today that really light you up, that you're excited about?
I something I'm really excited about, when I see our workforce, for example, is just the willingness and the desire to make a difference. To see a connection with their work and their personal values, to really want to make a difference, to make an impact, to have their work be meaningful and purposeful. Um, I think that's really what excites me about the future and the individuals that I'll have the pleasure of working with, now and in the future, is that I really see that there's the work it has to resonate with them. And that's particularly important for me because that's exactly what drew me to this field and what kept me in this field for the past 30 plus years is that the work is meaningful. Um, so I'm excited about that. We're responding as well. We're obviously wanting to create a work environment where, we can create more opportunities for, that type of meaning and engagement. And even for some of our folks who work in our administration offices that, they don't have the direct face-to-face contact, with the kids and the families that we work with. But we're trying to also create more opportunities so that the folks in our accounting offices and our HR offices, they understand that how their work allows us and their team, to really make the impact and kind of make that magic.
Yes, interesting. I love this. If an emerging leader or a new founder was watching this, what words of wisdom would you give them?
Um, it's a great question, Tom. I think I first would congratulate them and thank them, for their willingness to, do some, to do nonprofit work. Um, I think, what I would also encourage them to do is to make sure that they really understand um, the power of connections, collaboration. I spend a lot of my time, cultivating that, within our communities. I would just also tell them to make sure that they also understand the kind of the practical business applications they need to be sure they understand, where their revenues are coming from, where their expenses are going. You can't make a difference if your doors are closed, make sure you understand that.
Wonderful wisdom.
Oh,
I have a final question for you.
yeah.
If your younger self were watching this podcast, what would you tell him?
Um, I think I would probably tell him to enjoy every moment that um, that comes before him. I think as my younger self, I probably was guilty of not living in the moment and really cherishing the various experiences that were in front of me. So I think I would tell him that. I think I would tell him to relax and take a deep breath. Everything's going to be fine, and you're going to have a wonderful life. You're going to have an amazing wife and an amazing son, and you're going to have a career that you love. But you're going to work hard at it and you'll have some challenges along the way. So, but enjoy the challenges and embrace it.
And it's going to be all right. I think those are wise words. So, Anil Vadaparty, it's been great having you on Opening Pathways today. Please tell our viewers where we can find you and whatever you'd like to say about McKinley as we close.
Oh, thank you, Tom. Absolutely. So yeah, please, check out our website. It's mckinleycc.org. You could also find us on LinkedIn and all the social media platforms. I will say that again, McKinley is an organization that's dedicated to helping our communities, uplifting others. If you want to learn more about McKinley and more about the services we offer, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We love having visitors. So please, reach out to us at any time.
Wonderful. Anil, thank you for being on Opening Pathways today.
Thank you, Tom. It was a pleasure.
And to my viewers, this is Tom LeNoble with Opening Pathways. and I'll see you next time.